To check me, after I told her everything that was going on, she wanted to check for H. pylori. So she said, you need to go give a stool sample at the hospital. I'm like, all right. So I'm good with that. What do I do? She said, well, you need to take a hat. I'll give you a hat because this is like 15 minutes into the conversation. I'm like, all right. What's a hat? So I was thinking she's gonna give me one of them little plastic cups. Take home and you give your stool sample or whatever. So I asked her again. I'm like, well, where do I take this stool sample?
Well, tell him about the hat.
Well, hold on. She said, well, just take it to the hospital. And I'm still thinking in the back of my mind, you just take a turd and walk it up to the hospital. So anyway, she says, I'll give you a hat. And I'm like, all right. You know what a hat is, right?
One of those things that you put in the bowl.
Yes, like to do a urine sample or whatever. So I'm like, she gives me that to take home. I'm like, man, that's a big sample. So I go home. I'm like, all right. So I go home and get the stool sample, and it wasn't just a little bit. I'm like,
Your mother would have been proud.
so anyway, I'm walking around the kitchen. I'm like, I can't take this thing like this and walk to the hospital. So I'm like, I gotta cover it. So I put saran wrap on it.
Why, you could have used aluminum foil.
Well, I did. I used aluminum foil on top of the saran wrap. So I put this thing. I'm like, well, I still can't go. So I put it in a brown paper sack and wrap it up like a big lunch. And I'm still thinking, where the heck am I going to take these? So somebody said, well, take it to the lab. I'm like, well, okay, I know where the lab is
But the
at.
way he was telling me, it's like, honey, do I just walk in there?
You say
and there's my shit?
Yeah. I'm like, you just walk up to the receptionist and say, I brought you some shit. Well, I walk in there and I see one of my buddies in there with his little newborn baby. I'm like, oh my gosh.
You think that's
How's
a
it
baby? You gotta see this.
Can't talk to you right now. I'll see you later.
He carries a shit with him.
So I go in there and the nurse, I'm like, hey, I was supposed to bring the stool sample to have you guys check. She goes, oh, I hope it's not in there. I'm like, well, it is. I said, I brought you a hat. And she goes, who's your doctor? So I told her, Dr. Cassidy, and she just shakes her head. She goes, well, you're going to have to go in there and put it in this cup. And I'm like, oh my God. So she gives me the gloves and the little wooden tongue compressor. She goes, well, you need to put some in this little cup. And this is ridiculous. I'm like, I wish the doctor would have told me when I eventually talked to her. So I went in there and uncovered it, and it just. In my older age, I don't have the strongest stomach. I'm sitting there.
You waited till after we ate.
Yeah. Because I'm like, oh. And finally I got it in there and ended up taking it back to her, and then I had to put the rest in the biohazard bag and throw it in there. And then my buddy had texted me a little while later and he goes, hey, because I told him about the whole hat deal. He goes, how did your hat delivery go today? I'm like, well, I'll just use computer terms. I said there was a lot of cutting and pasting.